Night, the ladies get on a Zoom call, and some of the same players that said, yeah, we'll authorize a strike, now those same players are saying, maybe we should take the deal. Their mind, since it seems that some players have finally realized I gave up all my leverage when I authorized the strike. Players, as soon as you gave the executive committee all the power to strike, when Lexi Brown's fed up with the executive committee. Lexi Brown is one of those players that said, no, I'm not authorizing a strike. Everything.
10 agents, 1 letter. And the most powerful union in women's sports just lost control of its own membership. Not to the owners, not to the commissioner, to the very people who represent the players themselves. Here is what nobody in mainstream sports media is willing to say out loud. The WNBA Players Association did not just lose a negotiation. It walked directly into a psychological and financial trap that was months in the making, and the players who had the most to lose saw it coming and voted yes anyway. Today, you and I are going to pull back every layer of this collapse, because the internal mechanics of what happened inside that union are more alarming than anything the headlines are telling you. Let's start with the moment everything broke open. If this kind of forensic analysis is your reason for being here, hit the like button right now. Every click tells us to keep going deeper on exactly these stories, and this one goes very deep. To understand the full scale of what's happening, you have to go back to December, when the union held its strike authorization vote. On paper, it looked like a historic show of force, a near unanimous signal to ownership that the players were unified and ready to walk. The problem is what that vote actually meant in a legal context, and what it meant is something very different from what most players thought they were signing. When you authorize a strike in collective bargaining, you are not casting a symbolic vote of solidarity. You are legally transferring decision-making authority to the executive committee. Every single individual player who voted yes handed the keys to their own financial future to a group of 7 executives. And from that moment on, their individual leverage as a negotiating unit essentially ceased to exist. Here is where the fault line runs. The WNBA's executive committee is built around the league's highest-earning veterans. Players like Nneka, Ogwumike, and Breanna Stewart carry massive endorsement portfolios, equity stakes in secondary leagues, and investment structures that allow them to comfortably absorb a forfeited season without touching their standard of living. For them, holding out for a 27.5% gross revenue share is a calculated long-game bet. A tough one, but survivable. But the overwhelming majority of the WNBA's roster is not Nneka Ogwumike. Roughly 80% of the league is composed of role players and defensive specialists whose entire financial existence depends on their base salary. When that paycheck stops, the mortgage is late. The off-season training budget disappears. The health insurance the team provides evaporates. These are not hypothetical discomforts. They are immediate, terrifying certainties. And many of those players are now looking directly at their executive committee and asking a question that union leadership has no good answer for. Why are we risking everything we have for a revenue percentage that won't materialize in our paychecks for years? That fracture, invisible in December, catastrophic now, didn't stay inside closed locker rooms. Veteran guard Lexi Brown brought it into the open. Brown went on record stating that players do not agree on everything, and made clear she was not among those authorizing a strike. In the language of labor negotiations, that statement is not a dissenting opinion, it is a breach in the hall. When a respected veteran breaks publicly from the official union position, she instantly becomes the voice of every scared player who was too afraid to speak up. Ownership groups don't monitor union press releases, they scan for exactly this kind of crack. Brown's comments gave them confirmation that the United Front was always a performance, and that the real sentiment inside the locker rooms was something far more complicated and far more frightened. What happened next is what moved this story from a tense negotiation into something genuinely unprecedented. What is your read on this collapse so far? Drop it in the comments right now. Specifically, do you think the rank-and-file players gave up leverage too early, or did the executive committee commit outright labor malpractice by leading working-class athletes into a strike they couldn't afford? I want to see your full, unfiltered take below, because here's where the owners turned the screw one final time. While the union was managing its internal fractures, ownership quietly designed an April schedule that would make any prolonged standoff mathematically unsurvivable for the average player. The structure is devastating in its simplicity. Free agency compressed into a 4-day window. The draft set for April 13th, training camps opening almost immediately after. In a standard free agency period, an elite player has weeks, sometimes months, to visit cities, leverage competing offers, and negotiate the complex language of a multi-year contract with her agent at her side. In this manufactured timeline, there are no weeks, there are hours. General managers would call a player's representative, place a non-negotiable offer on the table, and attach an expiration clock. Accept within 4 hours, or the roster spot goes to the next name on the list. No visits. No bidding wars, no leverage, just a choice between a rushed contract and unemployment, made at the exact moment the player has already forfeited her current salary by honoring a strike the executive committee authorized on her behalf. The ownership groups didn't need to win this in a boardroom. They engineered the timeline so the math would win for them. And that is precisely the moment the agents moved. More than 10 of them, representing players across every financial tier of the league, from franchise cornerstones to borderline roster spots, drafted a formal letter directly to union leadership. The message, stripped of diplomatic language, was this: "Our clients are calling us in a panic. Your strategy has failed. The owners called your bluff. We are offering to step in and help close a deal, and if you refuse, we will instruct our clients to publicly revoke their strike authorization votes and negotiate individually." Let that land for a moment. In the heavily protected world of sports labor negotiations, agents do not intervene in collective bargaining. It simply does not happen. Their fiduciary responsibility is to their individual client, not to the union's political positioning. When more than 10 of them coordinate a formal back-channel intervention simultaneously, it means the phones were ringing at 2 in the morning with players demanding answers that the executive committee could not provide. This was not an offer of assistance. This was a vote of no confidence. Nneka Ogwumike and Breanna Stewart were effectively told by the agents of their own membership, "Your public strategy has collapsed. Our clients have mortgages. They need the free housing concessions the owners already offered. They are not willing to torch their careers for a revenue percentage that helps you far more than it helps them." If you want to keep digging into the real mechanics of what happens in these rooms, the back-channel maneuvering, the financial fault lines, the moments before the official story breaks, consider joining the channel as a member. Your support is what makes it possible to stay on stories like this one at this level of depth. Here is the part that should stay with you long after this video ends. The Caitlin Clark economy transformed this league's financial ceiling almost overnight. Record ratings, sold-out arenas, broadcast deals that would have been unimaginable 3 seasons ago. But the players who tried to use that momentum as leverage may have fundamentally misread their position within it. The owners understood something the union leadership refused to accept. The league's value is not the players' leverage if the players cannot afford to sit out long enough to use it. The billionaires didn't panic. They didn't blink. They set a deadline, designed a logistical nightmare, and waited for the internal math to do the rest, and it did. What happens now is the question nobody has a clean answer to. Does a deal get signed under the terms the owners have on the table? Does the agent bloc succeed in forcing union leadership to accept? And if it does, what does that mean for the next round of negotiations, when players will go to the table knowing their own agents can be mobilized against them? The precedent being set right now extends far beyond this specific CBA. If you are not subscribed yet, this is the moment. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, And stay locked in, because what comes next in this negotiation is going to move faster than anyone is prepared for, and we will be here with the full breakdown the moment it does. See you in the next one.